Okay, so today we're reviewing for that little quiz on arithmetic and geometric, and we're also going to kind of try to prepare you for some of the real world problems. That'll be the hard part on the quiz. All right, so this series right here, 2, 6, 18, is it arithmetic or geometric? It's geometric, and you can tell because if I added 4 here, and then I added, wait a minute, I can't add the same thing, and therefore it can't be an arithmetic kind. It must be a multiply kind. And then you go back and try again, and you go 6, and then I divide 6 divided by 2, and what does that give me? 3, and I know now that it was times 3. You can't do 2 divided by 6 or it'd be 1/3. That's not what you want. You want the 6 divided by the 2. And then I know that also times 3 this way would also work. And yep, I verified it as a geometric. And that, what's that times 3 called, by the way? Important that you know. Nope, not the growth factor. Common ratio. Now, times 3 is the common ratio. Then what's that deal yesterday where I was saying you should write this as 1 plus 2 when you do it so that it'll tell you the what? Percent of growth. So this is not 300% growth. It's what? 200% growth. That's what that reminds you about. Okay, so then hopefully you wrote this. U sub 1 equals 2. Now, if I had been doing a real-world problem involving money or time, you should have started with U sub 0. But since it's just numbers and they just want like 10th term or whatever, U sub 1 is a good way to go. Okay, and then you go U sub n is equal to U sub n minus 1. And then you say times something, and I suggested you use 1 plus 2. Yes, that's the same thing as 3. But it tells you the growth rate in there. And I know where we're going with these formulas that are going to always have a 1 plus in them, or a 1 minus. Usually plus. All right, and that 2 there is our 200% growth rate. And the last thing, did anybody remember n is greater than or equal to 2? Raise your hand if you did. Good, then you got the full point for that, because that's the domain, and a lot of kids forget to put the domain. Now, if you had to tell me the 10th term, you'd have to know how to put this in a calculator, wouldn't you? Because unless you want to times them by 3 the old-fashioned way. But I'd recommend you do this on the calculator the right way. Put it into the mode and everything. So go ahead and pop that into the calculator, into the y equals. I'm going to save mine for when we do this really complicated problem, but I want you to type this into your calculator. I'm going to just write down what you would be putting into the calculator. The first line says u. No, actually just says n min. Think about what that means. N is the little subscript number. N min means what's the smallest subscript. I'm going to pause for a second while everybody gets their calculators out. In your calculator, that top line should be n min, and I said this time it's not a real world problem. It's just a find the 10th term deal, so you should say 1, top line of your calculator, right? Okay, second line of your calculator is u parentheses n, which means u sub n. And you say to the calculator, u sub n minus 1. They always say that, always, always. And then you need the part where it's growing, and this is the part where you could just write a 3, but if you take the extra time to do this, I think you will pay off in the end, because you'll not make as many mistakes. So that means 200% growth. And then the third line of the calculator is u parentheses n min. And if you think about that, that means what is n min? N min is 1. So really this is saying what's u sub 1? U sub 1 is the first term, which is a 2, right? All right. So then the 10th term is a really big number. Do you have it? Can anybody verify that it was 39,366? A bunch of people, but not everybody. I'm a little concerned. That's all right. You have an invalid? All right. Well, on your calculator, y equals screen. Look at it. Make sure, yep, if you forgot the parentheses somewhere, that'll mess it up. If you have a minus here, you're good. If you have a negative there, it's wrong. It'll mess it up. Make sure it's a minus sign, not a negative sign. The difference is that one of them is an action, like I want you to subtract these things, and the other one is saying this number is a negative. All right. Okay, so now let's go to a more simple one. where I just give you a formula and then you tell me the terms. Whereas last time I gave you the terms and then you told me the formula. All right, so here is the formula. U0 equals $20,000. You don't have to put a dollar sign here first. U sub n is equal to U sub n minus 1 times 1 plus 0.04, where n is greater than or equal to 1. Now here's what I could ask you about that. I could ask you, is that arithmetic or geometric? And what would you say? Is it going up by the same amount every time, or is it going up by a different amount? Different amount, because it's going up what percent? 4%. And I am multiplying, even though I don't show it here, there is a little multiply that the calculator is going to do at that point. All right, so that's a multiply. So now I ask you, is this arithmetic or is this geometric? Geometric is the multiply kind. Arithmetic is the adding kind. All right. So the next question for you. My $20,000, is it going to grow or decay? It's going to grow because I'm multiplying by a number bigger than 1. So that's growth, not decay. All right. Why would you invest it at 4%? Actually, that's pretty decent return on the money. Let's say your parents have just saved up some money and it's sitting around and they are saying, what should I do with this 20 grand? I don't want to like buy jewelry with it, or I just want to save it. Well, you want it to grow because you don't want it to just stay the same, because if your $20,000 stays the same and prices generally go up over time, you're actually losing money if your money just stays the same. So you want your money to grow a little bit just to keep up with costs of things going up. Everything gets more expensive. Gas is getting a little more expensive. Food's getting a little more expensive. That's called inflation. So you want your money to grow. So can you get 4% in the bank? Nope. But you can buy some certain investments that'll guarantee you 4% return. And you might do that to try to make your money grow. All right. I'd like you to put this into your calculator. And I'm going to show you something about when you put that in that you may not have noticed before. On your screen here, I've got my n min is 0. Notice we're doing a real world problem involving money, so I'm going to pick a 0 to start with. So it's 0 on the top line. Then it's u sub n minus 1 times 1 plus, and then I think I did 5% last hour, so I did 4% for this hour. All right. And my original starting amount was $20,000. $20,000. Nothing to make sense. Got that right now. Enter. Yep, 20,000. Your attendance, so I'll get that in a minute. What's all the rest of this stuff I have in my calculator? That's where you can put another one to compare it with. Like that was the v function, or the u function. Now I'm going to do the v function. V sub n is given by v sub n minus 1. And let's say we're going to compare two options. You have the option of getting $600 a year. So make this one say v sub n minus 1. And by the way, the v is right above the 8. V sub n minus 1 plus 600. So I can take $600 a year, or I can do that other option, which was 4%. Either way, you start with $20,000. You see how I can compare it to? It's just like on your y equals screen. In your y equals screen, there's like y sub 1 and y sub 2 and y sub 3, so you can compare a bunch of equations. This is comparing a bunch of sequences. The u sequence, the v sequence, and if we really wanted to go crazy, we could do the w sequence. But we're not going to. We're just going to compare two. All right, so which would you rather have? Would you rather have $600 a year? Or would you rather have the 4%? All right, let's look at the table. And the cool part is, if you do this right, you go over to your table, and you can see that the U option gives me more money. Okay, that's the percent option. So right off the bat, I'm making more money, and I just keep making more and more and more money. If I go down to, like, let's say year 9, it's I'm ahead by like $3,000 with that percent option. Okay? All right, what I want you to do now is change it just a little bit. Let's change it to, instead of $600 a year, it's $1,000 a year. Now, which would you rather have? And be careful. $1,000 a year instead of $600 a year. And I'm going to ask to see your charts in a moment, so have your calculator ready to go. If you are struggling with how to do it, please turn to the kid sitting next to you and ask to see their y equals screen, because that'll tell you where you're messed up. And they can help you fix it. I'm going to pause for a minute while we get those all straight. Right now, what we're comparing is a 4% return with $1,000 a year flat. It's like if you were to give your cousin Louie 20 grand, and he says, "I'll give you $1,000 a year if I can just keep this 20 grand," versus the other situation where you got $20,000 and you're getting 4% every year out. At the end, cousin Louie is going to give you the 20,000 back too, just to make it clear. But he's also going to give you $1,000 a year while he keeps it. So which one's better? Well, it's kind of a complicated answer. All right, so I want you to get this on your screen. Get the table up for me, and if it's messed up, again, compare your y equals screen to some other kid. 20,000. Have it just like this so that I can see your numbers, and I'll be around to check on you. All right, now I can say honestly that it seems like pretty much everybody is in the right spot now. And if you're not, then hopefully you can get it fixed for this one. We're going to do one last change to the problem. I'm going to give you a situation. Go back to the y equals screen. And I ask you to compare these two. In the real world, I have a choice for an investment. I'm thinking about buying this place in my town. I live in Long Lake. There's a place for sale. It's a condo. Okay, we're just going to have to wait. It's a condo that costs $85,000. Okay, and I can buy it and rent it out. I have found out that they get about $1,200 per rent for this condo. So if I buy it for, like, I think I can get it for $80,000. Okay. If I buy this thing for $80,000, it'll give me $1,200, but you got to realistically take away a bunch because I got to have to pay the condo association dues. I'm going to have to pay taxes. I'm going to pay insurance. And I figured out it'll bring me in about $600 a month. Now, how much a year is that? $600 a month would be how much a year? 600 times 12. $7,200. Very good. So I am talking about an investment where I would buy this condo, and after expenses and everything, I would make about $7,200 a year. Every year. You get how that's kind of like one of these where it adds $7,200 every year? Okay. Or I could take my 80 grand and I could buy an investment for my sister-in-law that guarantees 5% return. This is a real world problem I have to figure out. And at the end, it gives me my 80 grand back plus the 5% I've been getting all the time, but I get my 80 grand back at the end. And in the end, my condo has been making me $7,200 per year. And at the end, I get to sell the condo, and I get the money from that too. Maybe the condo goes up in value, though. Whereas my sister-in-law's investment, that's only going to be the $80,000. So that adds the complication I'm not going to try to factor in. So here's what I want you to do. Make a comparison. It's $80,000 this time. And the choice is, do I want 5% on it? Or do I want $7,200 a year on it? It's not truly a fair comparison because at the end, my condo might go up in value. So that $7,200 thing, you got to factor that in. But don't worry about that part. That makes it more complicated than we would ever ask it. $80,000. Yep. I've got $80,000 to invest, and I can And that's a really good question. How many years? Because at the beginning, one might be better, and at the end, the other one might be better. So what I want you to tell me is, if I'm only going to hold it for a couple of years, which should I pick? And then if I'm going to hold it for a long time, maybe I should pick something else. Questions or comments or whatever? You got me. Good job. Oh, that's what you were doing? Ah, okay. I thought you were asking me a question. All right. So you were first. So you get it. And yes, if you want to collect, go ahead. And I need to pause for a moment and take attendance. Okay, back from taking attendance, and here we go. I hope you put in a 5% return, which was this one's 1 plus 0.05. Then I hope you put in 80,000 instead of 20,000. And then I hope you change this to increasing, the V option is increasing by $7,200 per year. And then the N min part is starting amount there, 80,000. And now I can compare them. And right away at the beginning, which looks smarter, U or V? V looks smarter at the beginning because it's growing faster. That's the one where you make $7,200 a year. After 6 years, it's looking more like V would be smarter. Okay? So early on, wait a minute. Which one's? I'm confused for a second here. U is growing at the percent, and V is going up to 7,200. Okay, I'm wrong. So V is looking good, period, for all the way through year 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Did anybody notice what year it flips? All right. And some of you probably never even went down here, but if you look, a percent is always a curve. And so that means that when you're graphing it, this is kind of what they would do. If I compare the one to the other, one is a flat line growth, and they both start at the same amount here. One's a flat line growth, and the other is a curve growth. So it goes like that. Do you see what I mean? One is geometric. This one's the geometric one, and the other one's arithmetic. So what you're seeing is that at the beginning, arithmetic is smarter, but at the end, geometric is smarter. And then there's a year, like right in between, where you notice that there is a moment where they're exactly equal. It may occur between like 2 years, but on one of those days, they would have been exactly equal. Now, what does that mean for me in the real world of investments and stuff? I might need to think like this. Well, how long do I want to invest this money for? If I need it in the next like 15 years, then I really should take the 7,200 one because that's going to be paying off better. But if I'm going to let it sit there for like 30 years and someday my kids are going to inherit it kind of thing, then it'd be better to take the geometric one. So in the long run, that percentage one would probably be better. All right, well, it also, though, in the real world, I was making one thing simpler for you that we have to figure out, and that's, what about the condo? Is the condo going to actually go up in value? Nobody really knows, but let's assume for a minute the condo goes up in value at the same rate of inflation. Then you got to factor that in, too. The condo's going to go up in value at, say, 5%. So you're not going to have to add anything that hard on your real test, but I just want you to know, the real world is more complicated than the little math problems, but at least you get a general idea. Generally, percents are good in the long run. Okay, Ben Franklin knew that too. Did I ever tell you the Ben Franklin problem? All right. He gave his millions to the city of Philadelphia, I believe. It was state of Pennsylvania. He was in the state of Pennsylvania, but I think it was the city of Philadelphia. And he made them not touch it for 100 years, and it grew to be a lot more than it was in the first place. Okay, so your homework for today. Your homework for today is a review. And if you understood that example I did with the two things being compared, that's important. That's a good real-world thing you're going to have to do in your real life and on your tests. And if you need help on that kind of stuff, ask me during our next period, which is the work time for the next like 15 minutes or so. Okay? So the Skyward quiz, I'm going to just say you can do it now if you want to, or you can do it later if you want to, but it is a one-time shot deal. It's the only one that's in Skyward right now. Is there two, really? Okay, it's the one that's, it says, what does it say? Growth and decay. And what's the other one? Okay, it's the arithmetic and geometric one. Sorry. It's the easier of the two. Arithmetic and geometric. 5 points, yes. Yes. I'm going to do that, yes. Yes, sir. That's not a hand. Okay. All right. I guess that's all I have for you for now.